Tune to West Bremer Radio on Saturday, the 28th of June, 2025. It's 8:15. Philip Brown said the ding sounds proves that the listeners that the program is live and interactive. Well, of course it's live and interactive, not like all the other bludgers that pre-record the program or they're coming from interstate Melbourne or Sydney.
Shocking.
It's a disgrace. But let's talk to Harold the H. P. Cock-a-doodle-doo.
So well
He's
read.
a historian, and he's going to talk about the extraordinary life of the 19th century Ipswich bank clerk, William Nalder. How are you, mate?
Oh, very well, thank you, Danny. Yeah, it's like I'm coming live to you now, as you know. However, this story is about someone who's dead. Or was he?
He's still he can be walking down the street here.
Could well be, yeah. And I think it's William Nalder. We'll go with Nalder.
What do I say, Nalder?
The banker. Yeah, but that'll work. But we'll go Nalder because we're on the posh side of the track.
We'll get on to it, well.
Yeah, look, in September 1865, in Ipswich, the whole town was perplexed by the mysterious disappearance of our Mr. William Henry Nalder. Now, he was 21 years old, but had told his employees that he was actually a fair bit older. Now, Nalder was a junior clerk in the Australian Joint Stock Bank in Ipswich, which was the same branch that the father of the author of Mary Poppins would later be manager. Now, Nalder's disappearance caused a great deal of excitement and speculation across the town. One Saturday, Nalder said that he wanted to go bathe in the Bremer River, which, that's cause for concern to start with, but he was going to do it that evening. And after having dinner, he was never seen again.
Wow.
Now, the next morning, some of his clothes were found on the bank of the river at Basin Pocket. Now, the immediate conclusion, naturally, was that Nalder had been drowned while having a swim. And so the police dragged the river all day Sunday, and divers were called in the next day, but all without a result.
Way back then,
Yeah, but way back then, among the clothes found on the river, his collar, necktie, socks and pocketbook were not there, which is deep in the mystery. And so on searching Nalder's room, where he lived, police discovered that a clean shirt was missing, along with a hat, a pair of boots and one suit of clothes.
Wow.
They then assumed that Nalder had embezzled at the bank and faked his own death to get away.
Wow.
Now, of course, on examining the books at the bank, however, they were found to be correct. And so the mystery deepened. Now, on the Friday evening before his disappearance, Nalder had purchased 1 pound of tea and 2 pounds of sugar at a shop in Brisbane Street in Ipswich, which, that supported the belief that Nalder was planning some sort of trip to, he's really determined to disappear. Now, Nalder had cashed a £7 cheque, which was his salary the day before he disappeared. He left some liabilities, like a week's rent, but not enough to explain this mystery. Now, the belief then circulated, this is what all trouble comes back to, was that his disappearance was due to a woman. Now, a similar case was recalled from a couple of years earlier in Brisbane when a young man whose clothes were found on the riverbank, and it was assumed that he'd been eaten by sharks. He actually turned up not long afterwards with the young lady in Sydney. So they naturally thought, okay, this is what happened to our Nalder.
Wow.
But despite all the speculation that swept across Ipswich, the truth about Nalder was even more remarkable.
Yeah.
You see, Mr. Nalder was formerly a treasury clerk in Melbourne and was one of the best-known men in the city.
Wow.
That's because he was a rifle shooting champion, having won several £100 in prize money, which back then was a fortune. Now, with this money, he went to England and enjoyed a tour of Europe. He then came back to Queensland and joined the staff of the newspaper at Peak Downs in central Queensland. And there he became a hero by apprehending by force of arms, with his gun, 2 horse thieves, and then he handed them over to police. Now, what had happened is Nalder hid himself in the long grass, surprised the thieves by suddenly springing out and covering them with his revolver and announcing that they were his prisoners. Now, one of the bushrangers, a Spanish West Indian fellow, he displayed a very formidable-looking knife. But Nalder, undaunted, ordered that the prisoners all sit down in the grass, and he explained that if any of them moved, a bullet would be lodged in their head.
Ooh.
Now, just to prove the point, Nalder gave a warning shot straight into a tree some distance away, and thereby convinced the men that he was a crack shot, that he was indeed. And so his orders were indeed followed. Now, on returning back to town, Nalder was too fast and enthusiastic riding the stolen horses. So when he arrived in town, tried to pull up, he was actually thrown, and he suffered brain damage. And he took quite some time to get over, or maybe he didn't. You see, that's when he came to Ipswich and disappeared for whatever reason.
Wow.
Now, Nalder, after Ipswich, then returned to Melbourne to again work as a clerk in the Treasury. And by 1879, Nalder was working as a surveyor in Kempsey in New South Wales.
Wow.
And that's where he saw out his days. Now, when he passed away in 1909, his funeral was one of the largest ever seen in the district. The cortege was more than half a mile in length. Now, no one was aware that their modest surveyor had enjoyed this incredible life as a treasury clerk and bank teller. But more exciting than that, was a shooting champion, a European Grand Tour gentleman, a hunter of bushrangers, and during all of that, he faked his own death right here in Ipswich.
Wow.
So you just never know who the person next to you in that studio is going to do, or the story behind him.
Well, I've run around him 3 times this morning. I've got chest pains. But
Thank you.
anyhow, that is a very good story, a very deep story. And we don't ever know what happened to William Nalder.
Well, we know what happened to him. He ended up down as a surveyor down in Kempsey.
Yeah, that's...
He went to Melbourne and then to Kempsey, and that's where he died. But no one ever knew about his whole life history before that, which, he was capturing horse thieves, he was faking his own death in Ipswich and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's an amazing backstory of a person that just a boring old bank teller or surveyor. You just never know.
Don't bag the bank tellers. Come on, they get...
No. Well, there's not many of them these days.
Well,
so
a mate of mine at Souths, I'll see him today. Souths Rugby are playing up at home today. And you won't believe it. He has been a bank teller for years, but he's more finance bloke now. But he was in the bank 3 times when the blokes come in with a pistol. 3. Could you be more
3
unlucky?
times, wow.
3 times. I said, were you scared? He said, what do you effing think?
And he hasn't faked his own death. Tell him he's got to lift his game. Then.
He's got to lift his game.
To get up to the level of William Nalder.
Yeah. All right, and another quick bank story, just a quick one, Damien. Mate of mine, John Shepherd, who became a pilot, he was out as a bank Johnny out west in Warwick, and he said they had a pistol, right? They had a pistol, and to practice, they just go to the local rubbish tip and fire off a few live rounds just to keep in hand in case they needed to use it. Could you imagine today? My God, Father, life was more simple, wasn't it? You there?
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine what would you shoot at the rats, I suppose, but that's
they just shot at cans and cans and stuff. But all right, so how do we find that and many other great stories, great reading?
Yeah, this mystery and a lot of others on my website, historyouthere.com.
Historyouthere.com. There he is, the impeccable. He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He's a great researcher. Here his name is Harold H. Yeah, come on, get on the pace. Peacock, Harold Peacock, historian on West Bremer Radio. The time now is 8:24.